This sporting great was English cricket's golden boy. He announced his arrival in Test cricket by hitting his first ball for 4. Only one other Englishman has scored more Test runs. A former England captain and Test legend, he's David Gower. Who taught you how to use a bat? Was it one person in particular, or were there a number of influences?
I think over the period of time, course of time, it started with my parents. I think it does with most sportsmen. My father was a very good, talented, all-round sportsman. He was a very good schoolboy sportsman, all sports around the board there. Cambridge Blue at hockey. Might have been a Cambridge Blue at cricket, he tells me, or used to tell me, if he hadn't had to work. That was the old system, he had to work in those days. But he was the one who started me. We were in Africa at the time. The first 6 years of my life were spent in Dar es Salaam, in what was then Tanganyika, is now Tanzania. And if I could have found it, I'd have brought the photograph where I'm there on the strip at the Gymkhana Club in Dar es Salaam with my father in the long white shorts, the white shirt, big hat, dark glasses. I'm there with lots of blonde hair, well, not as much as, well, more blonde than, anyway, and starting to play sort of the right sort of shots of the game of cricket then. But I mean, I played all sorts of sports when I was young.
But there was an affinity, you were locked into cricket.
Well, it just, as I got older, it just got better.
Yes.
I mean, for instance, through sort of the formative years at, say, prep school first, then at King's Canterbury, I would play the winter sports, rugby, a little bit of soccer, hockey I learnt eventually. I'd play things like tennis, a bit of squash, do all the things you had to. And I'd have a sport for every term, put it that way, but cricket was always the one which, as the years went on, was more evidently better than the others for me. And I suppose, you know, compared to those I was at school with, I was always just that little bit better from, say, the age of sort of 10 onwards, I guess. You could just see it.
How many years did you spend in Africa? What did your dad do out there?
My father was in what they call the colonial service, which is, in effect, admin. It's, you know, running the districts, the countries, what have you. It was when we had an empire that stretched far and wide. He went out there basically, I think, straight from university, so round about wartime, and was in Tanganyika for all that time until 1963, when it became independent. And
was that a privileged lifestyle?
I don't think if you asked him, sadly he's not alive to tell the tale now, but if you asked him, I would suggest he would tell you that for a lot of it, it wasn't particularly privileged. He was running, I mean, as a junior in that service, you run all sorts of minor districts. You're thrown in as a young man with no experience, but it's wonderful training, I think.
You see, and I wonder what you learned from him, because they sound to be like a lot of the qualities that a good captain needs.
Well, I think he'd probably been a better captain, to be honest. I think you're right. I mean, those are the qualities a good captain needs. If I look back critically, self-critically, when I was captain of England, I didn't use all those talents. I sort of didn't quite necessarily have the confidence, I think, all the time to back my judgment 100%. On a good day, fine, yes. But the key, I think, to being a good captain is on bad days, being able to use those same talents fully. And if you're a tall coward, if you're a tall, lacking in the confidence to go the whole way under those circumstances, that's when you lose out as a captain. And I mean, it's interesting so early to start talking about that, because I think all sportsmen look back on their careers quite self-critically. I try and take the view that what I did is now done, and I enjoyed most of it, enjoyed virtually all of it, not quite all of it. And in the sense that you can't change it now, it's silly to worry about it, but you do look back thinking, if only I'd done this maybe or that maybe. And certainly captaincy was, I think, was the toughest challenge of my career. And sort of the 2.5 years that I did the England captaincy job, some of that was fantastic, some of it was great. Beating Australia, which is a good time to mention that, you know, beating Australia in '85 by a 3-1 margin stands out still as the highlight of my career. It was my best series as a player, undoubtedly my best series as a captain. And we went in at the end of that, you know, towards the end of that series, after 4 games, we were still 1-1, 2 to go. We won the last 2 games to crown a very good summer. And that was very much the series I look back on most favourably.
Still to be Craig McDermott. It's overpitched and driven with all the ease and grace that one has come to expect.
Beautiful stroke. That's one for the memory. And even the bowler is clapping the stroke and the century As Gower has gone on now to 101.
No doubt about that. Glorious extra cover drive from David Gower. Brings him past the 200 mark. Come back for the third. David Gower goes on to 202. A magnificent innings, his best in Test match cricket, just nipping past his previous 200 here, which he made against India in 1979.
And that's 100 for David Gower. Another Test match century for the England captain. And life is pretty good for him at the moment.
My one watchword, as it were, for captaincy was responsibility, giving people responsibility to help make their own decisions. I wanted people to think that they were in charge of their own destiny, not just being handed instructions to follow without having to think about it. And I think that makes for better sportsmen. But when that doesn't work, then you have to find a way of getting through to people and being a bit tougher on people. And I guess I didn't always achieve that, to be honest. What I did once in a while was sort of lose a temper, try and set a few sparks in amongst them all. But it's a tactic you can only use once in a while, otherwise people get used to it if you're losing your temper or pretending to lose your temper. And it's sometimes hard to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Only I know the difference sometimes. But you know, if you're doing that, then it's a hard tactic to use all the time. You need to shock people now and again into action, but you can't do it, say, in a 5-day Test match. You've got 3 sessions a day, given half the game you hope to be batting anyway, but you can't do it every session.
Okay.
Suddenly explode.
Okay,
so you have to
that's
sort
you
of lead
being
people
right. Well, that's you
gently.
being hard on yourself. That said, was there any captain you played under that you felt had it right, had it better than you,
Well,
or were you as good as the rest?
several. No, I look back. You tend to look back also. I think the younger you are, the first captains you experience, you tend to think are your best because you're more naive. You tend to think, well, okay, now they know. You tend to just assume that they know everything about the game. And having said that, I did have 2 very good captains at the start of my career, Mike Brearley for England and Ray Illingworth at Leicestershire, both of whom, of course, captained England, both, of course, captained England successfully. Ray Illingworth, famous for the Ashes win in Australia in 1970, and Mike Brearley in the late 70s when I started to play for England was, again, a very shrewd, very tactically aware captain. And both of them, although they both have their roots in the north, but if you look to them now, listen to them now, you wouldn't realise that. Mike Brearley very much sort of the urbane southerner, Raymond still the bluff Yorkshireman. But both have this great ability to get through to players and get the best out of them.
Let's talk about an undoubted ability of yours, that with the bat. Different players hold a bat and use a bat in different ways. And when I was reading about you, a word that popped up a few times was eloquent. It's a nice description.
It is. I mean, I suppose, yeah, eloquent, elegant.
Eloquent with the
All
bat.
sorts. Eloquent is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
making
mean,
the bat
was it
singer,
graceful?
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, was it, were you in tune? Were you in one with the stroke?
On a good day.
Mm.
On a bad day, it was just the same, but inefficient. And I think it was one of the banes of my career that, because it looked so good when it went well, I always had people coming to me when it went badly saying, well, I do wish you'd try a bit harder, or words to that effect, if only you would concentrate or try.
Come the call from England and the first Test match, I presume that anything must be more preferable than being out for a duck. You're there, you're standing, you've got the bat there in your hand, you're waiting for that ball to be bowled. Can you remember what was going through your mind in your first Test?
No, but
Were you
I've
frightened?
got a sense.
Yeah?
I've got a sense. I was certainly nervous. Yes, I was 21. The good news, we were playing against Pakistan not at full strength. I mean, for instance, in that time, it was the era where Kerry Packer had half the world's major players contracted to him in Australia. So Pakistan were missing, for instance, people like, would have been a very young but still quite potent Imran Khan, and 1 or 2 other fine bowlers, Sarfraz, people like that. But they had a reasonable side. It was a Test side, and I was there at Birmingham in a Test match with some very senior England players around me, people like, as I mentioned, Mike Brearley, Bob Willis, all these sort of guys, and I was there as the youngster, batting at 5, I think, there with a bit of protection above me, and just waiting, just wondering what's going to happen. And you walk out, and I think it's a good sign. When you're testing players, at whatever age they are, and they first walk out into a test match, and you've got a crowd, the biggest crowd you've played in front of probably in your life, although I played a couple of one-day internationals where crowds have been good and got runs in those, hence the presence in the test side. But you walk out thinking, right, this is now test cricket. This is now what I used to watch on the television.
Yes.
Used to sort of, 11 o'clock, click it on, or 11:30 it was in the early days, click it on, and that sort of aura of the BBC doing cricket was there. All those voices and the silences. And now I'm part of it. And I'm watching a fellow called Liaquat Ali, who fortunately wasn't the world's greatest. Left arm, over the wicket, brisk medium, no more than that.
Yeah.
Coming towards me, thinking, right, just watch the ball. Just watch the ball.
And the new batsman now is David Gower, coming in ahead of Graham Roop, who is listed at number 4, and about to face his first ball in Test cricket. Well, what a nice start. No sooner it left the bat than it thumped into the fence. That's a great start for the young man.
And I was thinking, well, no, should I have done that? This is Test cricket. This is meant to be playing yourself in.
Yeah.
I thought, never mind, just it's a good start. I'll get on with it. And it settles some nerves straight away because you're off the mark, as you say. You don't want to go back with a duck to your name.
And you got 4.
4 runs, thank you very much.
Hey, that'll do
And
nicely.
I ended up getting 50 odd, 57 I think, with playing quite fluently, playing it. I was enjoying it. But you saw one of the early lessons, I was enjoying it too much, and I thought, well, now I've got 50 odd. Let's try and do a bit of things. You start to extemporise, if you can use that word as regards cricket, and you start thinking, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I played a shot, went up in the air, got out, walked back, thinking, well, that's not bad for a first attempt. But, of course, when you look back on it, you think, well, no, if you're in that sort of form, you've got in, got through. The true dedicated pro, I mean, Illingworth would have told me in no uncertain terms, well, you threw it away, you're playing well, you should have got 100, all that sort of stuff. And in fact, he did when I got back to Leicester, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm sure he did. I don't even have to remember it. I know he would have done. And you get the same message from the pros around you. So you're learning the tough lessons straight away.
Well, talking about 100, then later that summer against New Zealand at the Oval, you became the youngest English player to hit a century since the war.
Very pleasant too. It was a good summer. I mean, as an entry into Test cricket, again, I say I'm grateful because we had that Pakistan side who were not quite at full strength. New Zealand, again, it's not like playing. Well, it certainly wasn't. Put it this way, it wasn't like playing the current Australian side or the West Indies side of the 80s. It was definitely a couple of levels below that as regards degree of difficulty.
Short again, and given the full treatment by the left-hander, whipped away with the bottom hand for 4 more runs. Against to Gower. And that's hammered again off the back foot. 4 more for Gower.
Burgess again, that's beaten this time. And it's 50 for David Gower. And what a good innings it's been.
I got to 95. Stephen Bott, the left-arm spinner, was bowling. I went down the wicket to him, hit him back over his head. Unfortunately, dropped just about a yard short.
That's just 2 feet short of reaching his 100 with a 6. And every cricketing mother in the land will be offering a silent prayer now for just 1 more run. And there it is. A tremendous performance by a lad of 21 years and 118 days. He's the youngest England player since the war to score a century.
So everything's going really well, super duper. You're clocking up the runs, building up a reputation. How do you then cope with a dip in form and being dropped by test selectors?
Yeah, the dip came a couple of years later. that first summer was good. My first tour of Australia was good. Following summer, I got 200 against India. Good. You know, so this is, hey, fantastic. You know, what a game this is, you know. And you know, it's all flashing around the place, the blade's working nicely. And then it started to go off the boil a bit. And when things didn't go well at the start of that series against the West Indies, then you realise, you know that you need more than that. And they put it very nice. They said, well, okay, we think you need a bit of a break from this. You've gone off the boil, in effect. We know you'll be back. That was the encouraging word that I had from the selectors, from a lot of people around me. So a sort of tender age or whatever it was, so 22, 23, something like that. You realise there's a lot of time left. And I went back into county cricket for Leicestershire, started to get some runs for them again.
Meanwhile, you've got to deal with press headlines and things. I mean, you know.
Wasn't so bad, I promise you. Go back, I mean,
it was, yeah.
Over the course of my career, and now 5, 6 years on from finishing it, that's changed horrendously. I mean, the pressure and the headlines, they used to be that big, they're now this big. You know,
yeah.
That has changed a lot. And it was. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, I have to look it up. I have to get the scrapbooks out. But I don't remember being under huge pressure at that stage from them. It was a question of rebuild the career, come back, and when you start to get some runs again, you'll be back in the side, which I was, and then got a lot of runs in the West Indies a few months later.
Well, let me combine two things now, and that is press headlines and again being dropped from the side. Now this time for some antics off the pitch, well over the pitch, as it were. And this infamous...
This finger up my ear means I'm just about getting slightly embarrassed, but not too bad, yeah.
Well, this infamous buzzing of the pitch in Australia during the test match with this plane, not airplane. Now, what was the story behind that?
It's very simple. It wasn't a test match, which some people 9 years later think it was middle of a test match, but it wasn't. It was a game against Queensland at Carrara, just off the Gold Coast. And behind this stadium, which was actually built for Australian rules football, not for cricket, but there was a perfectly good pitch in the middle, was a small grass strip with 2 tiger moths, 1930s tiger moths, doing scenic trips to the Gold Coast for $75 a throw. And you could see them throughout the game taking off, and they go almost directly over the sight screen at the one end there and sort of do a loop of the ground, and off they go. 10 minutes, 15 minutes over the Gold Coast, checking out the beaches, checking out the birds on the beaches, and they'd come back and land again, that'd be it. And we were in a position on the third day where we were going well for about the first time on this tour in 1990-91. In a strong position, Alan Lamb and Robin Smith batting, 2 of England's finest, I like to put it. And the orders were to bat until tea just after, and we'd have a crack at bowling them out on the end of that day and through the 4th day. Checked it out. I couldn't resist. I got a very good 13 that morning, so I was feeling in good nick, feeling slightly frisky. Went down to the strip, phoned back to the ground just to make sure there weren't any wickets falling, no collapses imminent. Got the guy to fly us and said, "Now, do you mind doing a run over the cricket ground?" He said, "No, mate, no, fine, no problem at all." So do you mind if you've got any water bombs? No, can't do that, mate. No, it's very dangerous. So we just agreed to do the flight over the ground. We came through at about 150 feet, straight down the line of the wicket. The floodlights there are about 180, so he sort of came in through those. And we did 2 circuits, and Robin Smith tried to shoot us down with his bat. He got 100, I think Lammy got 100 as well. So everything actually went very well, and we sort of said, well, let's get our full money's worth. We'll do the Gold Coast while we're at it. Have these speaking tubes, the old-fashioned speaking tubes. Okay, Bruce, and his name, I promise you his name is Bruce. Bruce, okay, let's do the Gold Coast now. Okay, mate, yeah, no problem. Off we went. Did that, came back, flew over the ground, looked at the scoreboard, still 4 down, no problem. Landed. And unfortunately, what sort of let the cat out the bag was one of our cameramen on the tour had spotted something out the long lens. He'd sort of gone up with it, checked it, thought, I know those eyes. Even despite the goggles and the flying helmet and the rest of it. So they met us, 2 of these guys met us. And they didn't tell the management until the end of the day, who were blissfully unaware. I'd borrowed the $75 off the manager to go and hire the plane. But they were completely unaware till the end of the day that it was 2 of their players up in the planes. And when they found out, I think it was partly because of the way they found out, that they got very upset and all sorts of messages, and it was an inquisition following morning at 8:30, and eventually maximum fine and a very heavy slap on the wrists.
So was the aeroplane incident, I mean, was it a bit of a scapegoat for what was going on? Or, I mean, when you look back at that, are you resentful about the way that was blown up out of proportion? Or?
I resent I've never made any secret, I resent the way the management treated it. They treated it as something of a heinous crime. And I can think of a lot worse crimes perpetrated by cricketers around cricket tours than that, which have gone relatively unpunished. So that I resent, and I resent the fact that unfortunately it led into a period of my cricket where, when having been in such good form at the start of that tour, I should have been, at Christmas on that tour, so Christmas 1990, the way I was playing then, you'd have thought I'd have played another 5 years without a shadow of a doubt, uninterrupted, and would have got a lot more runs. But sadly, I then missed out on 2 years cricket pretty much.
Yeah. Did you fear?
It's partly my fault, because I said when I came back and couldn't get runs, I then found myself spiralling out of control, worse than any plane out of control. My cricket was going badly downhill.
Well, did you fear that was it at Test level? All these things combined, then did you think that was you going to be buying out then? At that
I mean,
stage?
it can so easily happen, or could so easily have happened. And inevitably, what happens, of course, in every sport is people start to look to younger players to try and build for the future. And so you need a slot to come available. You need someone to fail. That's always the sad thing. If you're out of the side, you need someone to fail as you did, to provide a slot to get back in again, which came 2 years later.
Right. Let's get back to the Test cricket. There was the last period of wilderness. There was the recall. You took the runs record from Jeff Boycott in 1992.
So David Gower passes Jeffrey Boycott's run aggregate in an England Test career.
And then we get to the stage where you call it a day. Why did you call it a day? What happened?
In essence, they weren't picking me. It got to the stage of my career where I was happy in a sense because I finished on a relatively good note in county cricket for Hampshire. The last couple of months of my season there, I got, I think, 400s, and felt as though things were going relatively well. After sort of 2 or 3 years where it hadn't been going swimmingly, I mean, enough good cricket, Test cricket, in and out, got in against Pakistan, been dropped again, hadn't gone to India, didn't get back in against Australia, had an injury. I sort of cracked a rib at the wrong time when a slot was coming up, and I knew it was coming up, and I was out of the game for 3 weeks at the wrong time. And what tipped it, I think, in the end was the fact that Mike Atherton, as the New England captain, was saying things like, I want to build a team over the next 5 years that will be capable of competing against anyone. And they took a side for the West Indies at the end, or they picked a side for the West Indies at the end of that summer, which didn't include me. I had hopes that they might sort of look at me as someone informed, someone with the experience, and I must admit I did normally get runs in the West Indies, even though we might have lost. I mean, I had two tours there where we certainly weren't winning the series, but I did get runs against them. And so when they didn't pick me there, I thought, well, that's probably enough then.
So where then is English cricket now without David Gower? Where is it at?
Well, don't blame me. It's there or thereabouts. I think that the frustrating thing about English cricket is that for so long now, for a number of years, those that have been watching it keenly and wanting it to do well have been suggesting things to improve the strategy, improve the situation, the system around here. And slowly, those in the game have responded. So that now, as of next year, things are going to change in the county championship. And I think it's been just too slow a response. I think we've needed to kick things into greater action for some years now. And I'm resigned to the fact that there are some good players around, yes. I mean, some of the individual performances in Australia over the Test series have been fine, they've been great. Especially actually on this occasion on the bowling side. And it's a question that the big conundrum is how you get our best players to put their performances into operation together on the same day over a period of 5 days to win a couple of Test matches at the start of a series. We're not that far off, but the difference is enough for someone like Australia to win the important points. For Australia to dominate the important sessions of play, win a series before England come in and win a Test match. And it's that last, I don't know whether it's 5% or 10%. That's the ground that the England team has to make up now on a regular basis.
But there was still one more captaincy to come in your career, and that was on the massively successful They Think It's All Over. Is it amazing that, I mean, you were incredibly well known as a professional player, but now, I mean, that fame must be even more so because of a TV quiz programme.
Yeah, and I don't have to say much either. It's been an extraordinary show for what, the last 3 years or so. We've done about 5 series, which no one knew how it was going to go at the start. It's one of these things where Gary and I started as a radio show, just to tell the story briefly, with Rory McGrath, Rory Bremner, Des Lynam as the 3 ever-presents. I did a pilot for that, and it just had one sporting guest and lots of silly noises and impersonations, you name it. And I used to do a John Art, which I'm not going to do now. And that was my reason for being on the show.
Yeah.
And they had to work out how to change all this for television, how to make it appealing for television, who to get on it. I mean, for instance, Lee Hurst came from nowhere at that stage, or seemed to come from nowhere. McGrath was there again, who I like very much. And of course, Nick Hancock, who, I mean, they originally had Des Lynam as the
host.
The idea, you know, that was the blueprint for the host. Dry, friendly. I mean, Nick, who is, I mean, passionate about sport off air, as it were, and a lovely bloke off air, has got this Staffordshire Bull Terrier type approach to hosting the show, which gives it the zing that makes it so successful, I'm sure. And Gary and I just sit around there, try and get a line in now and again. But the most disappointing thing is when we get a good line in, which is then cut out the final edit. And apart from that, we just go with the flow and absorb the knocks.
Yeah. When all's said and done, can you ever imagine, although you don't play, obviously competitively, can you imagine a life without cricket, not involving cricket, but whether it be the commentary or the writing or whatever?
I wouldn't want to, because it's a very stable part of my life, and it's what I know best after 20 years in the game. I mean, I suppose now I'm up to about sort of 25 years in or around the game, and it's hard to change that. But if the worst came to the worst, I mean, I've got a job now coming up for the next 4 years, still presenting and commenting on the game, which is good, and long may it continue. I enjoy doing it. It's great fun. I mean, I have to say, I do very much enjoy that part of the work I do now. But if for any reason that failed, then you present yourself with another challenge. Where to go next? I mean, the things I enjoy away from cricket are a little bit to do with the wine trade, as a keen consumer, but no more than that. I know enough to keep myself going. I love going back to those days in Africa. The last thing we did when we left Tanganyika, as it was a tour of Ngorongoro Crater, Lake Manyara, the game parks up there. I love going back to Africa, love going into the game parks, studying the animals, watching the animals. And if, for instance, I mean, if there was that horrible moment where cricket failed to provide, then something like that would appeal. Whether you'd make any money out of it or survive on it, I don't know, but it would certainly appeal. And I think there is enough left in the locker that if cricket went, something else would take its place, and I'd just transfer my enthusiasm to that.
Well, David Gower, I'm afraid I have to bowl you out there. We'll up stumps. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Thank you.